been here before, this is a storytelling show, which is sometimes funny and then sometimes other things, because that's what stories and people are like. This is a show that before quarantine, whenever that was, thousands of years ago, it used to happen in my house. Once a month, I would get a whole bunch of people to come over to my house so that I felt like I had friends, and then I would force them to tell me about themselves, and insist that they tell me real things and be really real with me, and then I would just make them go home. And so it's a fun time. And when things went nuts back in March, um, I did one of these and I was like, yeah, that's plenty. And then they kept having me back, which is very nice. So the good thing about the show is that I get to have just people I like. Like if I see someone and I like what they do, I'm just like, come on this, and just people I like in real life, things like that. No, and I feel like it's fun for performers because when you perform a lot, you spend a lot of time like rehearsing how things will go and kind of mapping and planning and strategizing everything and figuring out what this is and figuring out what that is. And then by the time you have it all set, it's almost like you're acting a version of yourself. And so you don't get to really like think on your feet when you're talking to people as much. And that's what this show's for, just to have people like not quite have a plan and see where they end up, and we get to find out what it's like to actually hang out with them, which like is cool to me. That's super fun. Um, so I'm going to start, and then we'll have lots more cool people come around. I want to tell you about the worst thing that happened to me before I knew what sex was, because I feel like when you find out what sex is, that's a whole level up in worse things that can happen to you. That's a big step. But before that, there's only two or three things really bad that can happen to you. You can, like, if your parents are going to kill you, that is bad. Or if you get near dog poop, those are pretty much the two. That's pretty much one or the other. So I grew up in outside of Denver, Colorado. There's not really an outside of Denver. It's all Denver. I grew up in Denver, and where I lived, um, I don't know if other towns in New England don't do this, but in the West, they have just like a highway that goes to the nuclear power plant or the prison, whichever they have there. Like the thing that nobody wants in town, they just stick one highway that goes there, and that's all. And uh, when you have that, like in my town, it was a nuclear power plant. And so there's always this land around those kind of power plants that you can't buy because it would kill you if you live there. And then there's land around that. There's a big circle of land around that it might kill you, but that land is very inexpensive. And that is where I lived. We lived on the big highway. There was just this tiny little, like, not even a ramp, just like a little dirt swing off the highway. And there were like 6, 7 houses there. And that was my neighborhood. There was no pavement. And my neighbors raised chickens and cows sometimes. There was a horse and like a swimming hole that was just literally just a hole in the mud. And all the grass where we lived died over and over again. So I don't know how healthy the animals were, but we are still here. So that's a good sign. Um, and where it was a really easygoing neighborhood, I think. I'm very old, and so I was a kid in the 1970s when the the like standard advice for how to make a kid happy was to lock them outside a house from dawn till dusk every single day. And so that's I was outside all the time with animals and other barefoot mean children, and I actually did super well in that environment. You would think it would be tough, but no, I blossomed nicely because I was the total queen of the neighborhood game. Who can put their butt on the electric fence the longest? Great game, super fun time. I'll tell you right now, the secret to winning that game is you look at your opponent and you squint so you make sure that they know that you know that they know how good you are at it. And then you just hold your butt on the electric fence. That's really the only game. And I was real good. I like to think of that fence as my first vibrator because it honestly probably was. Um, and I did very well there. It went great. But then one summer I lost all my standing in the neighborhood. I was not the cool girl who could win at the electric fence game anymore because of something that happened at Connie's house. Connie was a perfectly nice girl. I liked her, and her parents though were the one set of parents in our neighborhood that put sod on their. They put like grass on their lawn every 3 months because the grass would just die and then they would do it again and then it would die and they would do it again. So everyone else had just like hay and rocks as their lawn. And then there was one house facing a different way. Everyone also built their house facing away from the nuclear power plant because why wouldn't you? But they were like, nope, they faced their house the other direction and they put green grass on it over and over again. So Connie's house, people were a little like, I don't know, maybe they're too full of themselves, but they were perfectly nice. However, in their backyard, that was where the game was that like threw me off mine. In the backyard of Connie's house, there was just this big, like a swimming pool was about to be put in, like a big rectangle of just missing ground. And I think somebody probably dug out a pool and then gave up. And then instead of putting the ground back where they found it, someone put a little row of bricks, just like one brick, around the edge of that weird hole in the ground. And then Connie's parents threw like 10 German Shepherds in that hole and just left them there. And so as kids, our game was to go walk around the edge of the bricks, and we called that game Connie's house. And that was definitely something that was wrong with us. I was not very good at Connie's house. And one day, the very worst possible thing happened. I fell in the hole. Of course I did. I fall down a lot. I'm just that kind of person. I'm the one that gets sick and falls down. So I thought, honestly, I had heard the phrase I was like 8, and I'd heard the phrase getting the wind knocked out of you. And I thought that was just a thing people said. And then I fell in this hole and I thought I died. I was like, oh, I don't breathe now. I must be dead. And look, here comes Satan's hordes to like rip my face off with their teeth. And of course, the German Shepherds that came for me just wanted a best friend because someone left them in a hole all day. They did not want to kill me. But I was horrified, totally freaked out. And so, of course, my friends saw me fall in, and they were typical child friends. They just ran away. Just like, and so they were gone. And there was like a way you could walk out the shallow end of the great big dirt hole, but I didn't think of that because I was so freaked out. So I crawled up the deep end out of the hole, probably made a giant mess, had dogs jumping on me, was completely losing my mind. You have to understand that when I was 8 years old, I was the same as I am now, honestly. Like I had big glasses and I was just like a round tomato colored child. And when I was upset, the tomato part got much, much worse. So I was just like freaking out, breathing really, really hard. And I ran out to the front of the house where the road was across their lovely lawn. And just at that moment, the school bus happened to be coming down the street. So in my neighborhood, the school bus driver lived at the end right next to the highway in a weird thing that locally was called the grocery store. We called it the grocery store, and it was none of those things. It was basically a shack where a guy who drove the bus lived without any shoes, because if you live in Denver and you drive a bus, why would you buy those? And he had a few children who had lots of diapers, but not a lot of other clothes, because again, you live out off a highway somewhere. There's just animals there. Like, who needs clothes for your kids? And so they lived in this weird like lean-to there, and they sold stuff out of their house. They sold 3 things. It was goat's milk. That was an important local delicacy. live bunnies. Very exciting for kids, but got us all in trouble. We all tried to get a bunny at some point. Didn't go well. And candy necklaces, obviously a huge hit. Just the kind, where you pull the string and you eat the candy, and then pretty soon you're left with like a saliva colored string tied around your neck. That's always cute. So the bus driver was somebody that I knew as a decent person and, like someone who liked kids. And that was, I was very glad that he was there because as a kid, I definitely remember seeing adults like be aware of me and then see me and then leave, just turn around and be like, not dealing with that. So the bus driver, I was like, somebody on my team, this is going to be great. I'm saved from this horrible situation. So I immediately ran to the bus, even though I wasn't on my way to school or anything, and my house was only a couple blocks, a couple houses down. And the bus driver, salt of the earth guy that he was, he opened the door for me. He recognized me, obviously, because I had stuck out looking like a tomato. And he opened up the door, and I ran under the bus, and he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then he closed the door. He knew where my house was. He could tell I was flipping out because I was doing that kid like thing that, where you sound like a gorilla. And so he was just going to drop. My house was on his way out to the highway. He was just going to drop me at it, I think. And so he shut the door, and then I realized my fate because I could suddenly smell the smell. I had just fallen in a hole covered in dog poop. It hit me, and then I saw it hit him, and then I turned my head and I saw a full bus of children and just watched it hit one row after the other and watched my social standing for my entire life just be like, boom. So the good ending to that story is that eventually I grew up and I got to have sex, and it was worse. It was fine. Just teasing. So that's my story of the worst thing that happened to me. I've got lots of great performers for you tonight. They all have different themes or whatnot that they're going to talk about. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I'm letting them be in charge of it because I know that they're smart and cool, and you're going to love them. Our first performer is just a fantastic person on the local scene. I love having him. He is super sharp. He currently runs an open mic, a virtual open mic on Mondays. That is from Maggie's Lounge, and who knows if we'll ever see that place again, but maybe. And he's great. So please put your hands together right now for Sean Rosa.
Hey, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Angela. You just reminded me, there's this great clip from the 90s of WWF. It is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who is known for movies that are Fast and Furious. Also, he had a segment with a wrestler called the British Bulldog, where he did his finishing move, which is the rock bottom, where he just takes him and slams him down like that into a plate of dog poop. And the announcer called it like rock bottom, into the dog poop, the dog poop, the dog poop. It's the best. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about a story. Angela gave me the prompt of a time when you felt like your insides were coming out. And that could be physical or emotional. And as a very, very sensitive boy, I feel as though my insides are always coming out, kind of. So, I'm just bursting at the seams emotionally. So I'm going to... one recent thing that sticks out pretty hard. So this here is a story all about how my life got flipped turned upside down. And I'd like to take a minute, so just sit right there. I'll tell you how I got fired from my job that I've been working at for a decade. I know that doesn't rhyme, but I've never become the Prince of Bel-Air, so this is the best I have. Yeah, a couple months ago, I got fired from my job that I worked at for 9 years. It was intense. Here's what happened. So there's a break room at my job, and I would go in there every once in a while and like have a snack for lunch or whatever. And there is a machine where like a self checkout machine where you can uh, ring your items up and pay for them. And one day I had a little whoopsie daisy and I walked out forgetting to pay for them. And because of that, I was fired. Yeah, I work in a job where I was pretty sure that like my job was taken away from me by a robot. Like I work in a field which I was pretty sure was going to be done away with due to automation. I had no idea it was because they automated snitching. Like it was so just stressful. I mean, it let me know a few things like I learned from it. Like it let me know for a fact that I don't have OCD, you know? Because when like a lot of people say like, oh, I'm so OCD or what have you, and like they it's all just it's not real. It's just like, yeah, you know, every time I leave my house, I have to lock the door. Like every time you're sick. Do you wash your hands every time you use the bathroom? You should be institutionalized. But like the thing about obsessive compulsive disorder is that there has to be some sort of catastrophic repercussions for you not following this specific routine. And I don't have that because like let's just say, for example, that I were to go into my break room at my job and like I would never think that if I went into the break room at my job and picked out a blueberry Chobani yogurt, which I was going to eat with a plastic knife because whoever stocked this kitchenette at my job felt that plastic forks and spoons were a bit of a luxury item, and that I was going to pair this with a Yoo-hoo, which is a chocolate milk soda that I did not know existed outside of cartoons until this year. And if I were to walk out without paying for them, then I would lose my job and my health insurance during a pandemic. There was one benefit, I guess. I've always thought about what would be where would be the best public place to just be full on crying, you know? Like I've always like wanted like what would be the funniest place? And thus far for me, the funniest place for me to be just full on in tears would be right now the placeholder is in line at the CVS pharmacy trying to get a flu shot because before your health insurance that you get through your employer lapses, where I just walk up to the counter like I need a flu shot, but I'm scared. Do you guys know which ones have the autism in them? Like, it was so stressful. Like the idea of like looking for work in a pandemic, and especially like having to explain like, you know, oh, I see here on your resume that you recently left your long-term employer. Can you explain why that is? And I'd be like, sure. Are you familiar with stealing? Yes, I will leave, but not before I take your statement. You're like, goodbye. Yeah. Um. Uh. It. It was so just like I. I got fired, and then the next day, I forgot that the week before I had ordered a pull-up bar, like an exercise like pull-up station, and I was just like, oh, I like the mail just knew that I needed a way to hang myself. um, what fortuitous. Um, but I got a phone call from my employer about a week later, and they were like, "Hey, um, hey, we'd like to have you back." I think the subtext was like, "Please don't take any sort of legal action against us." And so um, they hired me back. But the thing is, um, I was demoted. I went back to working overnights. My current position that I'm in now, the demotion is a lot more physically demanding. And since it's technically a demotion, it's changed my pay rate as well. Like they decided that since I was being demoted, that I should be paid $2 more an hour. Yeah, it was just like, oh wow, like what? Don't punish me. Anything but this. Like it would be like if they were to call me into the office, it's like, hey, you can have your job back. It's all fine. Everything is squared away. On one condition: you were to get every day one blowjob to completion. Like, oh no, this is cool and unusual punishment right here. Um, I wish I had a moral to this story. You know, there should be some kind of moral to it. It's just like, maybe don't steal from your job, even though doing so is cool. Um, it is objectively cool. Um, like nothing made me want to steal from my job more than being accused of stealing from my job, honestly. um like I got hired back, and like I've like kind of halfway been planning some kind of Ocean's 11 heist for when I put my 2 weeks notice in, just like, oh no, oh man, like I'm gonna call them up like, hey, I'm gonna steal so many Sour Patch Kids, their heads will spin. Um, um, yeah, everything worked out, and I lived sadly ever after. Yeah, that's the story I want to do. Bye. Thanks, Angela.
Guys, give it up for Sean Rosa. Sean, I'm glad that you made it back, but also when you do decide to quit working there, if you want to make like a movie centered around a forklift, I'm in. I'm sure we could come up with something. I worked at a warehouse for a while, and I had known the owners of the warehouse for like, I don't know, like 15 or 20 years, and it was a small mom and pop place, and we all knew each other and everything. And I was also one of their customers. Like I was selling the product that I also worked on while I was there. So like it was very complicated. And one day I was, at another job, and I got a text from them, and they fired me over text. And I was super shocked. So I wrote them an email, and I was just like, hey, could we just have like a meeting where you tell me why I'm fired?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but I didn't know this was coming. So could we just like, take 20 seconds and you tell me what I did or something? And rather than have the meeting, they rehired me. They were just like, yeah, we don't really want to talk to you, so you can just come work here again. And I was like, okay, my personality works in my favor. Fine. But yeah, I can agree. Like, it was the warehouse where I worked. They recycled cardboard boxes constantly, like hundreds of thousands of pounds of cardboard boxes, and they would have somebody come and pick up all their cardboard every week. And I worked in a place where we needed things to mail stuff in. So sometimes I'd take off the recycling their cardboard, and I got in a lot of trouble for that, apparently. And I was just like, okay. It's nothing made me want to take home a lot of cardboard more than when I came back, just like you. But long under the bridge, and they're still fine, and I'm still fine, so it's all good. Okay, so our next performer, I'm super excited to talk to. When I told her about the show, I was like, "Hey, I can never get you to come and tell stories with me. Come and talk to me." And she was like, "I don't know if I want to tell a story." And I was like, "There must be something that you could talk about forever and ever." And she was like, "Oh, I could talk forever about my cat litter box." So we are going to talk cat litter boxes with the very incredible and wonderful, please welcome her, Janet McNamara.
Woo! Angela.
How are you?
I had to mute my mic during Sean's set because my litter box went off.
So now, have you been a cat owner for a long, long time?
2 years.
2 years. What made you get a cat?
Well, I always had cats growing up, and then I have a commitment phobe, and I didn't know how long I'd be at my apartment.
Yep.
And now I've been at this apartment for 12 years. So after 10, I was like, I think I can get a cat. But also my roommate came, like, adopted cats while we lived together. And I was like, this is great. I don't have a commitment, like roommate cat, like you have. Right. And then my roommate was like, I hate these cats. And I was like, I love them. And then that's how I ended up with 2 cats.
Tell me their names.
Orange Cat and Little Head.
Nice. Those are very descriptive.
Orange Cat's orange and Little Head is a little head. Like it's let me see if you could see her.
That's Little Head?
Yeah. That's Little Head. Her head is small.
Her head is smaller than her body.
Yeah, she has a really small head.
I look for in both people and cats.
Yep. She's a very dumb cat. Orange Cat's more popular on social media.
Do you have an Instagram for Orange Cat?
I have my own Instagram that Orange Cat took over.
Nice.
Yeah, Janet.McNamara, but it's basically an Orange Cat Instagram. But Orange Cat goes outside every day between like 8:30 and 9:30. And if you look out the window, people, like my neighbor was like, Janet, it's creepy. People take pictures of Orange Cat. Like, I think he's like, I don't think they follow my Instagram, but I think he might, whatever it is, like my neighbors are like, it is the most bizarre thing ever. And, like, the cat is like the mayor of Grove Street.
Nice.
Every morning.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I never had any cats. And then I had a roommate move in who had a cat, and he happened to be 19, and I am 50. So very quickly, I just own his cat now, because that's how people are. And so I am currently learning about cat things that I didn't know, and so I just bought like a $3 tub, literally just like a plastic tub to be the litter box. And did you start out that way? Because your litter box confounds me.
Oh, so I originally bought. So I went through a litter box challenge. So I originally bought like whatever the one is on Amazon.com that has a cover or whatever.
Yeah.
And then that worked for a little while, and then they were like getting like, it was like, and then they just decided to shit all over the place. And it was like, oh, you know what? No. First I got that, and then they're like the dirt from the litter box was going all over the place. So I got one of those ones that they go on top and they go in, which was better. But then the problem with that one was I kept forgetting to clean it because I wasn't looking at it and it didn't smell that bad. So then they started shitting and pissing all over the house. And then I got like really good about cleaning it, and then and I ended up buying a camera to see which one was doing it, because I thought it was Orange Cat, and I bought a camera and I like positioned it where they liked to, and it was both of them. Yeah. And I was cleaning it like 3 times a day. I lost a roommate because my roommate was like, your house smells like cat piss. And I was like, I can't really blame you. It reeked. Like it started right when the roommate moved in. And then I was like cleaning it like ridiculously like 3 times a day, and there was still anti-cat litter box. So then I took him to the vet, and the vet was like, you have to get him a second litter box. Cats are territorial. So then I had a litter box in my living room and a litter box in my closet. And they got a little bit better, but still sometimes we're like, yeah, fuck you, I'm going to pee all over the place. And then it was just also a pain in the ass to clean 2 litter boxes twice a day for like the most finicky cats in the world. So then I always wanted one. I saw them on like the Facebook messages and stuff of like, they're like, you know how you have like the electronic like litter boxes that clean themselves?
So no, I don't. What the hell are those? Yeah, no, I don't.
Facebook, even though I haven't had a cat for 12 years, Facebook knows I'm just a cat person. So just like, I've always just gotten ads for like self-clean litter boxes. So I've always known they exist. And then I did a bunch of research, and there's like different qualities of self-cleaning litter boxes. Most of them are complete horseshit. And they like get stuck and stuff like that. Most of them are like $100, $150, but like they're horseshit, $150. So I bought one for $650, which is the most amazing thing I've ever owned. Liam lives with me, and every once in a while, like we'll be watching TV and the thing will go off, and I go, God, this is why I work hard.
That's so funny.
It's I'll show you this litter box.
Please show it to us.
It looks like a spaceship.
It sure does.
It has a nightlight.
Like Doctor Who's cement mixer.
So it tells me, it has an app that goes with it, where it tells me every time the cat went to the bathroom.
Wow.
Like the cat went to the bathroom 4 minutes ago. And then from my phone, I can clean it. So from my phone, there's a remote. So it has a nightlight. Let me turn off my light and you can see the nightlight.
Yeah.
So from my phone, I could turn on the nightlight. See that? Yeah. And then from my phone, I can get it to go. So then start cycle. Oh. So what it does is most litter boxes, I'll tell you this, most litter boxes take the litter and they have like a little scraper and they scrape it into the bin. But then all the shit gets all in those like pieces and you have to clean it. This litter box turns the entire thing around, and then it has these like little like grates, and the litter flows through the grates, and it cleans out all the litter in the entire box, and then it cleans that litter and it puts it back in. It takes like 2 minutes. My biggest complaint is that it's very loud.
Well, I can't hear from here, so that's not bad.
Oh, you can't? Oh, okay. It's pretty loud, and it's also, I don't know if you could tell the size of this thing.
It's huge.
Yeah, you can tell the size of it.
A love seat.
Huh? Yeah, this is a pillow. It's the size of it's exactly the size of a love seat. Is exactly what the size is. Yeah.
It also reminds me of like a 60s chair that you would see in a bachelor pad.
Yeah. It's amazing. Also, I must have been in a very sarcastic mood. Like my office, I don't know if you guys' offices make you do this, but my office every once in a while makes us fill out like a survey that's like an about you survey. And like they never do anything with them. So I was just like, I filled one of those out. And I don't know what it was. And they said, like, what's your most prized possession? And I wrote, I bought a $650 litter box, and it saved my life, and it changed my life. And then they sent it out to my entire department. Like, it was like my about me. And then it said, like, what made you come to Goodwin Proctor? And I wrote, I applied. They said, "What do you miss most about not coming into the office?" And I said, "Free lunches and dinners." And then, of course, out of like the probably 8 surveys I filled out for this company on like the let us get to know you, that's the one that they used.
Of course.
And sent it to like, the probably 150 people in my department.
Well, that's pretty fantastic. I feel like Orange Cat and Little Head are getting well taken care of.
They're in good hands. I'm looking
Nice.
forward to hearing some stories because I.
Awesome. The cat that I got a couple months ago, I didn't intend to, but I've ended up in what I think sadly is a sexual relationship with the cat. Like my cat is a kitty and has been in heat, which is not something I knew existed really. I guess I knew that it existed, but I didn't think it affected people's lives. And the cat went into heat, and like every interaction I have with the cat is getting off on it. Like if I look at the cat is getting off. If I feed the cat is getting off. And the cat will like, now that we've gotten to know each other, the cat will like come up to me, roll over on her back, and like get me to pet her, and then move so that my hand is over her vagina. And I'm always like, I don't want to do that. So I've been feeling very close to the woman who worked at the NASA dolphin lab who got accused of sexually assaulting a dolphin. Well, that's a real true story if you don't know. In the early 70s, NASA, Carl Sagan became famous. He was the Neil deGrasse Tyson of then. And NASA went to him and he was like, "What cool things should we do, Carl Sagan?" And he was like, "You guys should give these people, these marine biologists, money. They're trying to teach dolphins to speak English." And NASA was like, "Great, here's a couple $1,000,000. And they opened up a lab and spent a couple of years trying to teach dolphins to speak English. And a woman who worked with one of the dolphins, a male dolphin, she hung out with him in a pool all day and just talked to him and tried to get him to talk back to her. That was her whole job. And over time, and then, they're working for a couple of years, and then one day some reporters came around. They were like, "We hear you're jacking off dolphins." And her response was like, "Well, like only to get them to talk." And that was not the response the reporters were looking for. And I feel like my life is close to that. And Janet seems to have it together. She is on the right track. So I don't know. Maybe I will invest in a fancy ass litter box. What's the name of yours?
Litter Robot.
Litter Robot. Okay, great.
Did you know that cats have their periods, right?
Yeah, I haven't noticed that yet.
Okay.
Maybe
my stepbrother has a dog, and he puts it in a diaper.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay. I haven't
I don't know anything about cat periods, but
I haven't had that yet, so who knows? The cat
good.
is still a kitten, so maybe that just hasn't happened yet.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. Do your cats have that?
No, they're fixed.
They're fixed. Okay. I'll probably get the cat fixed sometime.
According to my vet, the last vet did a shit job fixing them, but
oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, her scar is like isn't straight. Like her scar is like probably like 1.5 inches from like the middle of her belly.
Right.
And which apparently she didn't do a good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I know what to look for.
Yeah. Don't go to whatever vet fixed Little Head.
I'm sure the vet will be thrilled when I walk in. I'm like, "You're going to put the scar in the middle, right?" They'll be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Also, I didn't know this either, but when they stitch a cat up, they'll stitch them with like colored stitches. Like Little Head has like bright blue stitches, so
really?
that like they don't open them up a second time to fix them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so if like somebody gets a cat, they're like, "Hey, I need to fix this cat." That way they know the cat's fixed.
Oh, that's super interesting.
It's the same way with like stray cats. A lot of the times they clip their ear if they're fixed so that they don't capture the cat multiple times.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I guess with like non disposable cats. They don't clip their ear; they just give them colored stitches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know more about cats than I did before the show started, for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I am ready for a little robot, but maybe we'll see.
Yeah, it's it will change your life. Like, especially like you walk in my house doesn't smell like cat litter. Like, this is in my living room.
Here's a huge advantage, which I did not foresee about me owning a cat, is that I can't smell.
Oh,
I have really bad sinuses. I
yeah.
haven't smelled anything in years. So,
Oh, that's
like,
great.
maybe it smells terrible in here and I just don't know. And my roommates aren't telling me. I assume they would be very upset and would tell me.
Well, they wouldn't be mad at you. They'd be mad at the 19-year-old.
Yeah, which I would, but I would notice.
Yeah.
I would find out. And they're not
Yeah.
mad, so I assume it's not too bad in here. But maybe they're like, thank God she hangs out with that smelly cat. Which is fine.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I have more performers for you, and I'm very, very excited for our next one. She is fantastic. She is one of the funniest people in Boston. She won. I was really impressed by. She won a one-liner contest. I'm very bad at those, and she's really good at them. And she's just an incredible writer, and I love having her. So please welcome Carrie Ross.
Woo!
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah. So, when I was a lot, Angela, you mentioned Wile E. Coyote earlier.
Yeah.
Like, I had really, really bad ADD when I was younger. So I was like, if Wile E. Coyote was like married to a tornado with daddy issues or something like that, because I was always, so I'd always, like kind of be waving my hands around. So my parents got me a pair of devil sticks, which I use all the time, but then they broke. So the girl who lived kind of next door to me, she had so it was like you'd walk to get to my house, you like walk from her house and walk through these woods, and then you'd be at my house. And my way, I would walk through these woods and I would be at her house. So she had a pair of devil sticks that she was going to let me borrow. And I was hanging out with my best friend John at the time. And so he and I, this is so dumb. Yeah. So we were going to borrow a pair of devil sticks from this girl. Her name was Faith. So that's like sort of weird. But her name is, you really want to go borrow some devil sticks from a girl named Faith? That sounds like a trap. I don't know. So, yeah, I really wanted to get these devil sticks. Then my friend John also wanted to get a pair of walkie-talkies because I guess he forgot that he and I both had cell phones. This was not, before cell phone time. But so he and I were walking through the woods to get to the devil stick. And I have a really, really high tolerance for pain. But then I noticed as we were walking through the woods, something started to hurt down near my feet. And then my friend John started screaming. And so he and I had walked into a bee's nest. Like bees are important. These were yellow jackets. So he and I both got, so it was like that movie, My Girl. But no, because in that movie, the kid wearing the glasses is the one who gets the most bee stings. And I got like 11 bee stings, and he had like 22 bee stings because at one point he was running towards me, asking me to help him, and I was being an asshole friend. Ran away from him. But he and I both walked into my parents' house, and then of course my mom, who would have, she would have taken any reason to like throw me out of the house. But this time she didn't have to come up with one because we were both covered in bees. He was like, "What the fuck? Get out!" And so we both ran outside, and then she sprayed us with a hose. But for whatever reason, we both still wanted to hang out because my best friend John, he's a lot of things, including a goofball. And he was, he's like really, really afraid of snakes. So when the bees were stinging him, he thought it was a snake biting him. But so he and I both changed. We kept hanging out. So he and I decided that we were just going to go buy some devil sticks. So we went go do that, and then we got out of his car, and like I saw it, but I didn't tell him. There was like a giant rope dangling from this building, and he walks right into it, and then it wraps around his neck like something out of a Final Destination movie, and he starts screaming because he thinks it's a snake. And I was like, it's not a flying snake. I don't know. And he kept wanting to get walkie-talkies, and I was like, we have cell phones, but I don't know, because I think Faith did something to those devil sticks, and maybe she cursed them. I don't know, and so it was weird because like we didn't. I mean, I don't know. We like didn't. I don't know. I sort of it looked like I stepped around. I mean, because I don't. Anyways, these are silly, and yeah, maybe that was why he wanted to get walkie-talkies, so bees could call us and warn us about the rope. I don't know. So I got into a huge fight with my mom about it, but yeah. Anyways, so that's like a pretty good cure for ADD. Just get 11 bee stings. It'll only probably last an hour. But so anyways, we didn't end up getting any devil sticks. We both just took one of my dad's golf clubs and then just took turns hitting like rocks with it. Because I don't know, he didn't care about that golf club. But yeah, so I know bees are like important to the environment, but these were yellow jackets. I don't know what they do or if they do like anything. I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know. I was still really pissed off about my mom kicking us out of the house. Like, I guess she's so strict, you know, can't come into our house with bees or anything. So, yeah. So, you know, yeah. So I guess like the moral of that story is, never, you know, all right, God is dead. That's that's basically what, you know, is, because, you know, Faith and I didn't get along. I wonder what the hell happened to her. But, you know, because that meant, you know, after that meant she couldn't walk over to my house anymore because she and I really didn't get along. But for whatever reason, she and I would borrow stuff from each other. But so Yellow Jackets helped that out. And yeah, it's nice. I don't know. I think I should do that again. I should get attacked by bees again. And then maybe I will get back to business. Anyways, yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Guys, give it up for Carrie Ross.
Yay!
I love how when you're a kid, you think that there's a magical combination of activities that will just like fix your life, make you into whatever you want. I was totally convinced that if I could just roller skate continuously in a circle in my parents' garage to the terrible Billy Joel tape that they bought me for my birthday without falling over, like life was perfect, you know, like it was solved. Everything would work out great. And I think I just spent a lot of time in a garage as a result. Like, I probably just breathed things I shouldn't. So I'm very glad that Yellow Jackets did not befall you. And I'm so glad that you are much better than Devil Sticks.
Yeah, I know. I know. Never really good at using them. I just like hitting stuff.
No, I understand. There's like, yeah, when you're a kid, your toys are like, you're like, I'm so good at this when you have like some competence. And then you get slightly older and you realize there are people who are actually good at things. And you're like, oh, never mind. Just throw those in the bottom of a closet. Okay, so I've got 2 more performers for you. They're both incredible. I'm very excited for your next performer. So before we all stayed home all the time, she used to run a really cool stand-up show around town called Wet Cat, and she's super sharp. I think she's very funny, and I just love what she does. You're going to like her a lot. Please welcome Erin Matthews.
Woo! Aw, thanks, Angela. Yeah, rip Wet Cat. I miss her. Shout out to Janet, who headlined the first Wet Cat show. That room was lit. So my day job is that I'm a musician and I'm a singer, and I basically do all the like non-glamorous singing jobs that aren't that fun. So like one of the only regular gigs for musicians that is like steady pay is church musicianship. So you like go sing at a church and make them sound good. I used to have a bit about that, but I don't even remember my bits at all. But I sing at an Episcopal church, and my co-staff singer, my work colleague, I guess, asked if I could sub for her at a Catholic church as the cantor, which means that you like lead the hymns. And I was like, yeah. And then, so she put me in touch with the director, and he was like, you've sung Catholic masses before, right? Which I have not, but I like, people call Episcopal like Catholic light. And I was like, they share a bunch of music. I was like, yeah, dude, that's fine. So Saturday, it's like a Saturday mass in Swampscott, like out on the North Shore. And so I drive out there and I park, and it turns out the director that I've been in contact with the entire time was not playing the organ that day. He was going to leave to play a wedding, and he introduced me to the sub organist, who was this like retiree in maybe his like mid 80s. And he was stoned out of his mind. He was in a purple suit, and he was really excitedly talking about being the most prominent member of the North Shore's retired cannabis club. He had like a pot leaf pin on his purple suit, and he was like, it was like a fucking so it turns out that like Catholic mass is basically like the Episcopal service, but with none of the like talking bits in between, so you can figure out what you're gonna sing next. And if there is any talking, like it's in Latin, so you can't fucking understand what they're saying. And like the book that they use for the music is like totally out of order. And he's like, the director guy has like dog-eared some of the pages, but he's like, well, you do this, but then you're going to go back and do this. And then we do it like this. And he's like rushing because he's late to his fucking wedding that he's playing. There's no program that I can follow because it's a really little congregation. And then there's this fucking like stoner 80-year-old like in the corner. Like, it was just like such a mess. And I was just like, I have some performance chops. I've been doing this a long time. I was like, it's cool. The music's not hard. This is fine. I feel like people who are like in their mid 80s who are stoners are like a whole different breed of stoner. You know what I mean? Like, they're not like dumb like teenagers, and they're not like douchey like white male entrepreneurs or something. They're just like bizarre. Like he was such a character. I wish I had stayed in touch with him, honestly. But then, so the worst part of this is all like rushed and bad, but the worst part is like right before he leaves, I'm like, oh, where are the robes? Because every church job I've ever fucking worked at, you show up in whatever you want, and then they give you robes to wear over it. And he's like, oh no, we're a really little congregation, we don't wear robes. And I am wearing a sleeveless, like a spaghetti strap crop top, low-rise ripped jeans, Doc Martens, and a leather jacket. Like, I look like my like registered sex offender boyfriend just drove me up on his motorcycle and flagged me down to sing a Catholic mass. And I was like, okay. So all these like ancient Italian North Shore Catholics start filing in. The head music guy like leaves. The stoned organist is like, don't worry, I got you, honey. And I'm like, I feel safe. And so I decided to try to like just stand behind the music podium like the whole time and wear my leather jacket, so it just looks like maybe like I got cold and I made a poor outerwear choice or something. But then after the opening hymn, the priest just like looks at me and like waits for me to go sit down. So I have to go sit down in complete silence while everyone just watches me do like the worst outfit reveal of all time. Like I have like walk of shamed before, but like that was worse. And so I don't really know when to go back up because everything is fucking in Latin and I don't know how this congregation does things. And every time the organist reassures me, it feels worse. So I like didn't catch it. I think the organist was talking to me and then I look up and the priest is like looking at me doing this. So I like run up in silence, but I have no idea what we're about to sing. And I'm like supposed to announce it. And so it turns out that it's the director guy who's not even here at this point didn't dog ear one of the things that we were supposed to sing. And I sort of know it. It's one of those things that you're like, Alleluia, Alleluia. So I sort of catch on with the organist at some point, but then there's a verse and I don't know the words to the verse. And I'm like trying to find it in the book and I just sort of like stop. And then the organist starts fucking belting out the words from the side of the room while I just stand there in my motorcycle outfit looking horrified. It is truly scarring. So I go back down. There's more like Latin and like incense or whatever. I'm like more ready this time and I know what I'm going to sing because it's like the closing hymn. So the priest has me like go back up. But I had just started doing well in comedy. I think this was maybe like last summer, maybe like early fall. And I was like, this is funny. Like I can spin this. You know what I mean? And so as a cantor, you're supposed to like introduce the closing hymn. And so I like introduce the closing hymn, like, let's all sing blah, blah, blah. And then while the organist is playing the intro, I like lean into the mic and be like, sorry about the Alleluia, everybody. And no one laughs and they all just like stare at me judgingly in Italian. and then I just start fucking singing the closing hymn like I didn't say anything. Like I've bombed in comedy before, but I feel like at least if you're bombing in comedy, like even if the jokes aren't funny, you're still doing the motions that people expect you to do, like standing there and like wearing clothes and holding a mic and talking. But like this is just a whole nother level of like, I clearly had like no idea what was going on. The organist had no idea what was going on. It was just like so funny. After the service, the organist was like, happens to the best of us, baby. And I was like, okay. And I like just wanted to get out of there before everyone else. And I didn't even have to like work hard to do that because everyone left so fucking quickly. Like I have never cleared a room that fast before. And I still got my paycheck mailed 2 weeks later, as our agreement stated. I never heard from, I told my colleague what happened a little bit and she was like, you said you'd sung Catholic masses before. And I was like, yeah, basically, but not, it was just like a mess. And I never heard from the organist again. They obviously like never called me to sub again. But it was traumatizing, but in like a way, you know what I mean? And my prompt was a time you can't believe you got paid to do that. So
nice. Give it up for Erin Matthews. Yeah. That is wonderful. If there's one thing I like having you out there in the world doing, it's scaring religious people.
Did very well. Also, it says the page number literally right behind you. Like, you know where you stand at the podium?
Oh, yeah.
Like right behind you, it has the page number.
They didn't have one. It was such a little congregation. They just didn't have anything that I was used to.
Oh, it didn't have the page number?
It was garbage. Yeah, and it was like the communion bits where they do this and they do a little bit of that, and it was a mess, but it was really funny.
I grew up in a Methodist church, which is the opposite of Catholic. It's like super. They don't like decoration. That's their whole thing. They're like, obviously, I'm an over decorator, so I didn't fit in well. But their whole thing is like, just don't stain these benches. Just leave them so that people get splinters. Could you please? Just don't stain them. And it's like going to a big, long lecture. There's very little singing. There's no, literally the church that I grew up at when I went to when I was a kid, it was built into the side of a mountain. So instead, the like part that you look at while you're sitting in church was like a rock climbing wall. It's very dry. And when I was a teenager and my parents got remarried, I finally visited an Episcopalian church, and I was fucking horrified. I was like at a Methodist church, you don't ever get up out of your seat. Your job when you're a kid, it's like the church that Mark Twain writes about. Like, your job as a kid is to try not to go cross-eyed from boredom, and that's all. And then going to a church where people like stand up and sit down and kneel, and there's like a bench, and like there's accoutrements stuck in the seats like an airplane, and like everybody knows what to do at the right time, and there's directions and like multiple pamphlets and books. I was so freaked out. Everybody's wearing fancy ass, like the guy doing the service has like chains. I was super weirded out by the whole thing. And so I'm glad that you're out there freaking them out. Okay. We got one final performer. I'm very excited. This guy, sorry, I'm going to cough. This guy is the guy who I've seen on stand-up shows recently around town. I'm still going to cough. Excuse me. I started talking at the wrong time. So, let me try that again. This guy is super great. I started seeing him on stand-up shows during quarantine. He's really, really funny. He's super good at like tagging things in real time. He's just a delightful performer. He's visiting us from California, and we're really lucky to get him. So please put your hands together right now for Dave Yates.
Yay!
Thank you very much. Good to be here. Good to induce a coughing fit from our lovely co-host. I feel like my introduction was like cat hair to you. We've had a lot of cat stories and animal poop. So naturally, I'm gonna bring it home with some sadness. Storyteller shows are always the worst because it's like you want to be funny, but then the story you're going to tell is not funny, so you're going to like try your hardest to tag like an awkward, sad story. So that's what's going to happen, and I got my eye directly on that clock, so we're going to try to keep it tight. So I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Illinois, and my mother and father, we were like middle class as it comes. Like my mom was a legal secretary, and my father was a mechanic. And the prompt was the time you knew your parents were liars. Now, for me, my parents were always pretty straight with me throughout my life. But the one thing I never really believed them about was that they loved each other. I know that's hilarious. But, you know, like we were, I guess, holiday Christians, you know, like Easter, Christmas, you know, a smidge of the old holiday church. And throughout my life, they always supported whatever it is that I did and my brother did, but they were two opposite people. Like my father was a very type A personality and a mechanic, and he worked in the rail yard 80 hours a week. And my mom was very introverted. She was a legal secretary, and she never really went out. And I never understood for the life of me how they came to be together. Just because my dad would go out and hang with his friends all night, and mom was just content and going to work and going home. Like, I think the only friends my mom ever had throughout her entire life were all like people like on the verge of death. Like that was her comfortability level with making friends. Like, have you ever been so introverted that you only make friends with people you know aren't going to be around for a long time? That was my mom. See, there's a funny dark tag. We still got comedy in here somewhere. And my father was always out and about, but a lot of the times they would fight. And like, I was the kind of kid where like I knew what divorce was at the time. I'm 34, so it wasn't like I was I was growing up in a time where that wasn't a thing. Like I had friends with divorced parents, but they would fight all the time, and it was just like, why are you guys together? And they're like, well, we love each other, and I'm like, that's bullshit. Like I, so much so that it's just like if that's what love is, like I don't want nothing to do with that. I just could never believe it. Like we went on vacations, and then there would be arguments, and my dad was a big drinker, and then there was arguments. My mom had mental health issues, so then my dad was left to do a lot of the work around the house. So like I didn't understand that. Like I always thought it was this big like lie, like we love each other, or we stay together because we love you. And the waters get muddied in that regard. And I would love to tell the story about how I caught my parents not being or being Santa Claus, and they told me Santa Claus, but that wasn't it. Like it was like a deeper lie. It was like I never understood why two people would be together that were seemingly the complete wrong matches for each other, that they made each other miserable. Like there was a lot of resentment towards my mom, and it was not her fault, but it was just like she was, afflicted with mental illness. And, my father would sleep on the couch a lot. And I just always, the whole time, it's just like, he works so hard. Why does he have to sleep on the couch? And it's just like when you're young and when you're growing up, you just where you live, you hate usually, and I never had it any worse or better than anybody else. Like I said, run of the mill. We never really, we weren't super poor. We weren't super wealthy, but I never understood that. So like as soon as humanly possible, I left. That was 18. That was going to college. That was going to school downtown Chicago. And I was commuting at the time, but then I would only like hang out with people that partied like I partied. So like naturally I stopped coming home, because I didn't get that. It was always a very tense situation. Like there was never any real knockdown fight like physical, like abuse going on, but it's just a lot of just tension. It's just like, how could anybody live like that? And naturally for me, I come from a long line of alcoholics, and so I drank. I drank a lot. I drank. It wasn't something that I felt like I had a choice in the matter. Like I drank because I never felt comfortable in my own skin. I was always tense because of the environment I grew up in. So I would drink, and I'm a very type A personality. I was very much like my father. So I would drink to kind of just fit into wherever I was. If I were to say that I had any affliction of depression, mine reacts very differently than some people. Whereas, like sometimes depression manifests itself in you lock yourself away in your room for days. Me, I would force myself to be out constantly. Like I never wanted it to stop. I never wanted the party to stop because eventually I would have to go home, wherever home was for me, be it a couch or an apartment, whatever. So eventually I drank myself down to Central Illinois, which is in the middle of nowhere, where I started doing stand-up comedy. I know, a curse worse than alcoholism is stand-up comedy. And I was very lucky that both of my parents would come support, but I still never understood. Like, here it was again. Like this is years and years down the line. Like, and I'm in my mid-20s starting comedy, and they would always show up together. And they still, throughout their lives, Dad was out and about. Dad worked very hard. He partied with his friends. Mom worked very hard, and she would just go home. So around 2018, it was November, and I got the call that my dad was found a growth on his pancreas. And I had just booked myself a bunch of independent shows through the South and then up through the Midwest to make it home for Thanksgiving. I would always try to spend holidays at home. And I was doing shows in Arkansas, I believe it was Fayetteville, and I got the word that it was cancer. It was stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And it's kind of one of those jokes in the business that comedians are in. It's like, hey, your grandmother died, you're on in 5. Like that's just life, and it's not much different than any other job in that way, where you leave kind of what you're going through at the door. So I'm doing these shows, and I'm like maybe 2 years into headlining, so I'm doing 50-minute sets, and they're going pretty well. But this whole time, it's just like I was detached from my body. Like I just, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, stage 4, there's no 5. Like stage 4 is the last stage of cancer, so it's just very heavy. And because I'm sober, right at this juncture, about 8.5 years, at that juncture, maybe 6.5, I would go do the shows. I would do okay, and I would sell the merch, and then I would go back to the condo and just eat Taco Bell and cry. And I would talk to my father on the phone, and I made it home, and then I finally saw it. Like I saw it, that they did love each other, because my father was dying, and my mother was there to take care of him. And that's what it hit me. It's just like I think sometimes people get together, and they go through what they go through because they need each other in some weird way, and I always thought that they were lying when they said that they loved each other, because that didn't, like, it's not what love, I guess, when you watch it on TV, or if you see it in real life, like you see people that are like, man, they're perfect for each other. Like that's what love really, but I never knew. I would like to say that he won that fight, but he did not. So for the last, from November till April, that was the length of the battle. And I remember being home and watching him deteriorate at 59 years old, watching an invisible force take him down. This was a man that worked 80 hours a week in the rail yards, and just to watch him be reduced to a walker, and it was just one of the hardest things that I've ever had to deal with. But there were those moments where, like, my mom would just like put lotion on his feet, and he's like, I love you. And I believed it for the first time. Like, I believed it, because in the end, who knows where we end up? But like in that moment, I knew that that's actually what love was about, and it's hard when you're grieving, grief is one of those things that in America that we are very fucking terrible at. In other countries, when people die, they throw parties. And some rumors are that there are orgies. I can't confirm that, but I'd like to think in other countries that aren't America, there are death orgies, because that's the world I'd like to live in one day. That was probably a hack way to save the saddest moment but whatever. And when you're grieving, people say dumb things to you, like I had a guy come up to me and say, oh, I'm sorry you lost your father. And I'm like, well, I didn't lose him. I know exactly where he is. Yeah, we spent a lot of money to put him there, and he doubles back, and he's like, well, what I meant to say was my dad left me when I was 9, so I get it. I'm like, oh, your dad left you? He probably left because you grow up to say dumb shit like that, Like, grief is terrible. Like, and I think in talking about it, I can show that what the love is, So when I found out that my parents weren't liars was in death, like that, for better or for worse, that as much as I couldn't see it, it was there, and it sucks that it took losing someone that I cared about a lot to realize that, and it's funny because, like, and I'll wrap it up with this and a punchline, I promise, and a merch pitch, because I'm not going to talk about my dead father and not try to sell you some shit. What is this? Um, I never had a big family. Like I have my mom, my brother, my dad, uh, and a crazy aunt. And the actual love and the family for me is the people that I choose to be in my family, you know? And that's people in stand up and in life and in recovery and things like that. So much so that when my father passed, a friend, she called me and she's like, Dave, I'm going to make you a lasagna. You know, and I'm like, fuck yeah. Grief lasagna is the best lasagna, you know? Like being from the Midwest, like food, right? Like that's the one thing I know about grief is food and money help with grief. Thoughts and prayers do not, okay? Like you can hire someone like Aaron to sing at a wake, okay? And it's probably going to be great. But food and money help, okay? Better than anything else. So my friends that love me, so she called me up the next day. She's like, hey, I need you to come get this lasagna. And I'm like, I don't want grief chores right now. Can't you just bring me the lasagna? So she does, and she brings me the lasagna. And I cut into it. And don't get it twisted, I was very grateful, but I cut into this thing, and she had put vegetables in the lasagna, like carrots and squash and shit. And I took one bite, and it was like my dad died all over again. You know, like who the fuck puts vegetables in a lasagna? So if you're eating shitty vegetable lasagna out there, I make a hot sauce called Ha Ha Hot Sauce, and this is not a joke. And a true sidebar to that story, I sold about 3 cases of hot sauce at my dad's memorial. So I was crushing it even then. So if you like hot sauce, you can support a comedian who's grieving with money, because money helps with grief. And you can go to hahahotsauce.com. I believe some people that I've been on shows with in the good old bot. Carrie, did you purchase one, right? Did it show up yet, or are you still waiting?
Yeah, very hot.
Is it, well, hot sauce is supposed to be hot, Carrie.
I know.
It's like, hey, that thing, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. So hahahotsauce.com. I love you all very much for being here, even if I've not met you. We're all doing the best we can, and I appreciate every one of you, especially Angela, for putting this on, and the man behind the scenes running the comedy studio. Thank you. I'm Dave Yates.
Guys, Dave Yates, that was incredible. I think that might be the best explanation of what love is that I've ever heard. It's like someone who will pop your boil, you know, and just be like, this is what we're doing today. If we have to be miserable, we're going to do it together. That's what it is. And it's so I understand very much what it's like to have weird resentments with your parents. My parents were Olympian resenters. They were very good at it. So whether you had a
I was
family
really
like mine-
hoping that you were saying that your parents were both Olympians, like they were
No.
both like Olympic athletes. I'm like, that would be weird to have Olympian parents and be like, I do stand up.
It would be especially weird for Olympian parents to have like a roly-poly fat art child. Here's what I want to say. Whether you have parents like Dave's that love each other, or parents like mine that definitely did not, if you have people in your life that you love, tell them about it. Whatever way you can. You don't have to tell them with words, because those aren't very great all the time. Pop their boils, you know?
You can
Get
tell
some
them with hot sauce.
That's right.
hahahotsauce.com. Show people you love them by sending them hot sauce.
Burn their mouths.
Yeah.
Also, if you have people in your life that you hate, tell them too. It's extremely important to just let people know how you feel. Hot sauce works for both of those, so you should definitely get that. This was a really, really fun version of the show. We went from dog poop to I actually learned how to live better. And that is pretty fucking incredible. So I want to thank you guys very, very much for being here. This was a really fun one of these. If you're watching out there, thanks for hanging out with us. We do this every single Wednesday, and we will do it again. Brett Kohler presses buttons behind the scenes for us, and he's great. And the Comedy Studio has shows pretty much all the time. They've got a website that you can just go to and watch whatever show's happening tonight. And a lot of it's stand-up, and then there's all kinds of stuff, variety, this and that. But it's all fun. And this was really, really great. Thank you guys very, very much. I feel like I might be a better person someday because of this night. So thanks. Have a good one.
Ew.
Ooh, pizza's here.